Sincere condolences to Peter, Lostock's resident med student, who is now realising he is instead studying applied veterinary. Apologies, Peter. Now, to continue the case for proposition, we welcome Gino Kenny to the floor. Here, here.
Thank you for inviting me to this very worthwhile debate. In a different environment than the doll, but yeah, it's good to be back in kind of an environment where there's people again, rather than being on a computer. And I just want to start of making a case in relation to regulation of drugs. I mean, I'm going to state the obvious. People will use drugs whether illegal or not, right? And the laws that govern in this state means that every drug that we know, as in illicit drugs, are illegal. So every single one of them for sale, to take and consume. So they're all illegal. Yet, the consumption of drugs, if you look throughout the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, and now, the trajectory of drug use and demand has incrementally grown every single 5 years across the world. And the industry is worth a colossal amount of money. And the violence that comes with prohibition is probably almost incomprehensible for us to understand. In Mexico alone, 20,000 people were killed last year in relation to the narcotics war. So the violence that comes with the vacuum, and that's what it is. Once you put something, make something illegal, somebody will fill that vacuum in. And the vacuum is generally filled by the black market and criminality. I just want to give my background. I grew up in 1980s in Neilstown, and it was a great place to live, to kind of grow up. But I always will have kind of etched in my kind of mind in relation to the heroin epidemic that hit the 1980s and the 90s. And it was kind of extremely hard to see, and it's extremely hard to see your friends, your family members being caught up in that. And it was pretty bad, not only for the person themselves, but the community. And I mean, the community bounced back, but it was extremely, extremely difficult in them circumstances. And I've asked myself many times, why I've come to the conclusion that making drugs illegal simply is completely counterproductive and doesn't work. And I will kind of make the kind of correlation between drug use and social deprivation, because you cannot get away from both of them. Deprivation, inequality, and kind of poverty drives people to certain drugs that are highly toxic and will kill them. You know? Yes.
Do you really think that those vulnerable communities would have fared better if things like heroin were readily available in the corner shop?
No, but you have to answer. You have to kind of address inequalities and kind of sometimes the personal pain that somebody will go through at certain times in their life where they actually will turn to drugs. Nobody's born kind of dependent on any drug. Nobody. But poverty and alienation can drive people into that kind of sphere. And that's, you can't get away from that. Just in relation to different models that we need to look at. And one of the models I think that, I think we should model in relation to Ireland is in relation to Portugal. In Portugal in 2001, they had a system called decriminalisation. And decriminalisation is good. It saves lives in relation to overdose, in relation to those that kind of, will have maybe a drug problem, keeping away from the criminal justice system. Their system has worked. It has saved lives. And once you save lives, then you got my attention. Now, at the moment in Ireland, we have a system that is literally bizarre, right? Criminalising people for drug use. And can anybody seriously say to me in this room that works? Nobody can. It doesn't work. Think about it. if somebody has a dependency on a drug, right? Just say, for example, alcohol. Would you send that person to jail if you had a problem with alcohol? No, you wouldn't. You give them help. And now we have a situation in Ireland where simply criminalising people, marginalising people, alienating people simply doesn't work, and it's completely counterproductive. So we need a different system. We need a system that kind of looks at holistically, tackles inequality, tackles alienation, why people, first of all, why did they turn to certain drugs? Like, why would anybody turn to heroin? Think about it. Why would anybody turn to crack cocaine? Has anybody ever taken heroin before? Has anybody ever seen somebody on heroin? Has anybody seen actually somebody die from heroin? It's absolutely appalling. Why would anybody want to take that drug? Why would anybody want to? There's an amazing high of it, but at the end of the day, it will kill you, and it will kill you very, very quickly. Why would anybody want to take that drug? You have to ask yourself, is it the pain, the trauma that people go through? In certain, we all go through trauma, and some of us turn to alcohol, some of us turn to all sorts of stuff, but some people took to heroin, some people turn to crack cocaine. But why criminalise them? Why is that allowed to happen? So there's a vacuum that exists, and there's a market. And once you have a vacuum, the black market will fill that vacuum in. So in relation to cannabis, cannabis should be legalised completely and regulated, right? And there is a way of stopping the kind of corporate interest of actually kind of monopolised. That can be done. Look at what happens in Uruguay. It can be done, and I think it's a much better system. So just to kind of less than a minute left, right?
Oh, yeah, 30 seconds.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. So I think there's a good debate happening in Ireland at the moment. I was just actually speaking about it in the Dáil today about the Citizens' Assembly. The Citizens' Assembly is to look at kind of drug use in Ireland. Now, the shame that has happened, that is delayed till next year. Now, whether the recommendations from the Citizens' Assembly, we don't know. I don't want to kind of preempt anything. But I made a statement in the Dáil earlier on. This has been going on for decades, literally decades, while communities and individuals rot because they don't have a voice, because the political system don't care about them. They don't care about them because they're in working class areas. If this was in the more wealthier areas of Ireland, I tell you one thing, the government would sit up and listen and think about doing something else. Thank you.
We thank Gino for that excellent speech. And now to continue the case for the opposition, we welcome Scott Evans.